name is Zach Eaton. I'm the Sergeant of the Public Information Office for Sac PD. Today, Chief Lester is going to be providing a brief statement, prepared statement. She's going to be joined by Mayor Darrell Steinberg and elected officials as well as community leaders from the city. Will be available. The PIO's office will be available for questions after. The chief is going to be giving a brief statement, like I said. And with that, I would like to invite her up to the stage when she makes it, and she'll be giving a brief statement.
All right. Everyone good? All right. Well, first of all, let me just start by saying how truly sad I am for the families whose lives have been changed really forever, and some have been completely devastated today. We have families whose loved ones have been hurt, and we also have families who have loved ones that are just simply not coming home today. The scale of violence that just happened in our city is unprecedented during my 27 years here at the Sacramento Police Department. We are shocked and heartbroken by this tragedy, but we are also resolved as an agency to find those responsible and to secure justice for the victims and their families. We are committing a great deal of resources to this crime, and we are thankful to our regional and our community partners, many of whom are here with us today, who have reached out to help us. I would also like to thank the governor and his office who has offered to assist us. Here's what I can share with you at the early stage of this investigation. Around 2 a.m. this morning, officers heard gunshots near 10th Street and K Street and saw people running. They were on scene almost immediately, and there they encountered a large crowd and multiple gunshot victims. Officers began to give medical aid, including CPR, to the victims that they found, and at the same time worked to stabilize the scene and learn what they could about the crime. Our officers were assisted by members of the California Highway Patrol and the Sacramento Fire Department, and all of our agencies tried to save lives. What we now know is that 18 people were hit by gunfire. 6 have died. They were all adults. There were 3 men and 3 women. While the official notification to the victims' families will be handled by the coroner's office, our detectives are working with the coroner to make this happen as quickly as possible. 12 others were also shot and wounded, and they are being treated at area hospitals. This investigation is only hours old, and we are at the beginning of this process. I know you have questions today, and I won't be able to answer all of those because I won't do anything that would jeopardize this investigation. What I can tell you is this: investigators are working to identify those responsible for this horrific act. We know that a large fight took place just prior to the shootings, and we have confirmed that there are multiple shooters. Investigators are currently interviewing numerous witnesses. We have located hundreds of pieces of evidence at the scene. Every one of those we processed to help us learn more about this crime. And one of the items that we found was a stolen handgun. We also found that buildings were struck by gunfire during this incident. We have video from our police camera at 10th and K Street that captured portions of this shooting. And we have received multiple videos and tips from members of the public. We are deeply grateful for that. And I want to thank the public for their assistance. I would also ask that this continue, and anyone with information about this incident, contact us immediately. We have opened up City Hall as a meeting point and an information point. We also have a dedicated an investigator to be a liaison to ensure that they get as much information as we can share. What happened last night is the biggest and most recent example of what we all know. Gun violence is truly a crisis in our community and has increased not only here in Sacramento, but across the nation. This tragedy only strengthens our commitment to reducing violence in our community and finding meaningful and lasting solutions to the problem. We are working hand in hand with our community partners to focus our resources and efforts where they will have the greatest impact. I'd like to recognize some of our partners who have joined us here today and stand with us. We all understand that solving the problem of gun violence will require a community-wide effort because public safety is a shared responsibility. And with that, I would like to introduce our mayor, Mr. Mayor Daryl Steinberger.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief Lester. In addition to all you said and what will be said in the next few moments, I hope the community at large sees the power of community behind me, which are my colleagues, my fellow elected officials, Vice Mayor Ashby, Councilmember Jennings, Councilmember Chenier, and of course Councilmember Valenzuela. But beyond that, the business leadership of our community representing the downtown area, but also the community leaders, the community-based organizations that stand with us in saying enough is enough. I want to thank the governor as well, who reached out to me directly, as well as his chief of staff. I want to thank our first responders, the police and fire personnel that were on the scene in the middle of the night, as always walking into uncertain situations, risking their own lives. I have every confidence that Chief Lester and the hardworking men and women of the police department are going to find who was responsible for this horrific and unacceptable murder, and they are going to arrest them, and then we will bring them to justice. For that must be part, and a big part, of our community's response. But it is much more than that. The chief alluded to the unacceptable increase in gun violence. I want to remind all of you of a day not so long ago, pre-COVID, when the city went 2 years without a single homicide involving Sacramento's youth. 2 years. And now we are living in a different era. And it's not to blame what's occurring in this spike on COVID or anything else. We must all take stock and ask ourselves, what can we do different? What can we do better to not ensure this will never happen again, because that's impossible, but to do everything we can to minimize the chance that we will stand here like this on a Sunday afternoon, mourning the deaths of innocent people and mourning their families. Well, here are a couple of quick thoughts. As we have changed the trajectory of our city to invest more in young people and more in gang intervention and more in youth violence, we need to continue to do so and in fact elevate those investments. The summer is coming. The summer is coming. And we now have an opportunity to do everything we can to build on what we're already doing to help save lives. And then there is the issue of guns, and of course this is not a Sacramento issue. It's a national issue. No surprise that any city would be hit with this kind of terrible event. But here is what I know. It is beyond time to have a sane conversation about guns in America. We have a sickness. It's a sickness in our country. It's a sickness in our culture. Can't we agree that on one side of the line, firearms for hunting, for sport, even for self-defense is okay? And on the other hand, ghost guns, these guns that can be remade by parts that allow the firing of multiple rounds at a time, are absolutely unacceptable in our community and in our country. That's what has to happen here, and this sickness will be cured someday in this country, or we will destroy ourselves in this country, as we do in too many communities, on too many occasions, over too many years. We mourn the victims. We grieve for their families, but as I said this morning, thoughts and prayers are not enough. It's not enough. That's too easy, and it will be too easy to mourn for a week and then move on. We can't do that. In our city, we will take stock, and we will do everything we can on the investment side, on the public safety side, on the gun side, to protect the public. And finally, I know Michael Ald and others are here from the downtown. I want to repeat what I said this morning. I understand the apprehension of people who look at this and say, oh my God, is the downtown safe? Well, guess what? 3 major concerts this week. Incredible amount of happiness and celebration. The food scene is booming. It takes forever to get a reservation to eat at a downtown restaurant. Let us not forget that this is a downtown and a central city that we want to continue to build and to grow. We're just getting back our legs and our momentum. And I want to encourage people to come down. Come down, you know, for a game. Come down for a concert. Come down to eat. Don't stay out till 2 in the morning. But come on down. We will stand with each other. We'll protect each other. And we will stand with our chief here as she and the department goes all out to make sure that the perpetrators are brought to justice. Councilmember Katie Valenzuela, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here today. As I mentioned this morning, we are heartbroken, but we are strong. And Sacramento will get past this, and we will figure out a path forward, and that is in no small part due to the heroic actions of our first responders, as the chief and mayor said, who ran towards the gunfire to help people, to try to save lives, to respond to this crisis, who are out there now and have been out there all night searching for evidence to bring the perpetrators of this horrendous crime to justice. But I also do have to recognize these community leaders behind me, a lot of whom don't get paid to do this. Because when I got the call at 2:30 in the morning, the next call I had was actually with Barry Asius from Voice of the Youth to figure out what was going on and how they could help. The 2:30 in the morning, he got out of his bed and drove down, and a lot of the folks standing behind me got out of their beds and they drove down to see how they could help the police, how they could help the community. And we can't do what we're doing today without them and their relationships and their expertise. So we are heartbroken. I said this morning that I've been in office for less than 16 months. This is by far not the first call I've gotten like this. I hope it's the last. I hope we can learn from this and take this seriously. I hope we can take our advocacy, as the mayor said, I will go wherever I need to, if it's to DC, if it's to the state capitol, whatever we need to do to not just get the resources we need to prevent these crises from happening and negatively impacting so many communities. As shocked as we are by the scale of this incident in downtown, we can't forget North and South Sacramento. We can't forget what's been happening there for years and years. We have a lot of work to do as a city to ensure we're addressing violence at its root. And that means addressing the social and economic conditions that are leading to these crises occurring in the first place. So we are ready for the long haul. We are ready for whatever this takes. And I'm just so proud of our city team, and I'm so proud of the community standing behind me here for how we responded to this crisis. And we will not stop until we see justice, but we will not stop then either. Because justice means that this doesn't happen again, and that we don't have another horrible tragedy on our streets, and that we're able to go out and just enjoy the restaurants and do the fun things that our city has to offer. So, thank you, and I believe I'm turning it back over to the chief for any questions. Oh, no, sorry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, the chief and as well as Mayor Steinberg and Councilmember Valenzuela are going to take a few questions. Please answer or ask your questions in an orderly fashion, please, one at a time. I know everybody has a lot of questions, so with that, I'll take the question first.
So this is for Chief Lester. You mentioned that a police camera downtown caught moments of the gunfire. Can you elaborate on any potential suspects or suspects?
We don't have that information to share right now, but like I said, that we are in the preliminary stages of this investigation, and our PIOs will certainly be available as that information becomes available, and we will share it.
And then just a quick follow-up question. Our reporter in the field says victims' bodies are still on the ground downtown. Is there a reason for that? It's almost 12 hours later.
This is a really complex and complicated scene, and there is a process, and what we want to do is make sure that this investigation is completed thoroughly and accurately, because we do want to see the perpetrators of this crime brought to justice.
Chief, you mentioned multiple shooters. Is it safe to say they were all part of the same sort of party, or are we talking about different groups that all had handguns, had their own conflicts, or whatever it was that they were getting into? And also in the downtown area, does that mean that there's multiple scenes that are being processed where shootings occurred?
You can see that it's a very large scene downtown. We have multiple blocks that are actually blocked off right now while we do the investigation. But I don't have the information that you're asking as far as the suspects, but I do expect to have more information in the coming days, and we will share that.
Chief,
Chief,
are there any
there's
training
Chief,
outside?
there's been a lot of talks of, we're talking about the youth, and then we're also talking about ghost guns. Have we confirmed that the guns that were used in this were ghost guns, assault rifles? Have we confirmed that the suspected shooters were youth?
No, we haven't confirmed any of that information at this time.
Chief,
what can you tell us about
this
the stolen
firearm?
Where was it stolen
I'm gonna
from?
be available to answer a lot of your guys' questions. With that,
Is
we're
this
gonna
one
conclude
for
the
the mayor?
Chief Lester's part of the press conference. But from here on, I'll be able to take your questions, and I'm sure
I
that
have a quick one.
next people up here will also be wanting to answer your questions.
For Mayor Steinberg or for Mr. Alt, you mentioned King's Games, restaurants, downtown's gonna continue. Is that a sign that gun violence like this is becoming more normal in Sacramento?
We can never accept it as normal, and we never will. But we also have to live our lives and do our very best to assure people that we're doing everything we can. Look, violence is random. Violence is prevalent throughout the entire country now, but it is in fact random. And so we want to urge people to be safe, of course, but we don't want to shut down either, because that would be the wrong response.
Thank you.
You know, the timing of this is obviously frustrating, but keep in mind, I mean, we've invested a tremendous amount in the downtown, and we've seen over the last several months a return to office. People are coming back to work. They're coming back to events and activities. This event, while frustrating, and you know, our hearts absolutely are with the victims and their families, we've got some incredible momentum that we cannot back away from. We've got to continue to invest in downtown. We would ask the community, please keep coming down. You've heard that. This is an opportunity for us to reopen this city and welcome back that energy that is so successful. Communities are known by their urban centers, and we are not backing away from continuing to lean into this.
Michael, this is Graham Womack. You and I have talked before. Is there a possibility of putting more lighting on K Street or maybe more cameras? Like, what do you anticipate being done?
Absolutely, the timing is perfect. So we've worked and partnered with the city in the ARPA funding. We got resources to not only help with more lighting. By the end of this month, you're gonna see the implementation of new security that's gonna manage not only the JKL corridor, we've got additional lighting in Old Sacramento. We're working with law enforcement on security cameras. A lot of this stuff is challenged a little bit with supply chain, but there's absolutely an investment in the public environment and public safety that in the future really will allow us to have more capacity in that area.
We just put forward $8.1 million from our federal rescue plan dollars for exactly the purpose that Michael just described, to maximize safety, to provide better lighting, to have more outreach workers, to invest more in the ambassadors and the community leaders that are back standing behind me so that we can intervene earlier when there is a fight, so that it doesn't spill out into the kind of thing that brings us here today. And so it's $8.1 million. It's all in process. Some of it's already out, but it continues in process to elevate the security and significant additional resources for gang intervention and for youth programs. We have these pop-ups, you know, most Friday and Saturday nights throughout the community, and they're great, but they're not enough. They're not enough. We're gonna need to go 2-3 levels deeper here.
Mayor, on that note,
Yeah.
because I noticed we've got several youth advocates, community activists in the fair. Do you want to say something about you've taken a stand on asking for more funding for outreach? What does this latest shooting show that's needed in the community?
I believe this is a day of reflection, and I think, and I'm hoping that now that we see that this is an opportunity, but I also want to encourage folks to know that it is safe in Sacramento, but the safety is going to be provided by the outcomes of today. And I feel like the outcomes of today will be that we should see more support, and we're hoping that the support won't come later, but come now. So we've urged our community, we've urged our leadership to see this in a different way. I think we have, But in this moment, in this time, there was nothing that could have been done to stop what was gonna end up happening. This was gonna end up happening, whether there was community leaders there or even police officers in the site. Because some of these things that are happening are isolated incidents and isolated situations where certain people have issues. And unfortunately, this was a cowardly act where an issue now hurt innocent bystanders.
Who is your name,
Excuse
please?
me?
Barry Axius, BERRY-ACCIUS.
And
We
Mr.
want
Mayor,
to-
if I
and
can
the
ask
police
a
came
question,
tonight,
Mayor
the
Steinberg, if I
police
could
presence
ask a
tonight,
question
the police-
about what Barry's speaking about, because Barry has been asking for funding, Mr. Mayor, for youth programs for years, and you've offered that funding. If I could ask the question,
Last one.
as the last one, can you offer a commitment today for this in an actionable item for the long term, not just year-over-year funding for youth?
First of all, just several weeks ago, the city council voted to invest an additional $5.1 million in youth. And so we are not just reacting to the tragedy of tragedies here. While we've got a long way to go, we are in real time trying to change the trajectory of this city to expand what we consider to be core city priorities. Public safety is always first, has to be, as is evident here. But public safety, as my colleague Councilmember Chenier has said often and brought forward a resolution, is about more than just men and women in uniform. It's about investing in young people, $5.1 million. Are we going to continue to move that trajectory in that direction when it comes to investing in youth? You better believe it. We have to, and we will. Okay? Okay.
I want to thank everybody for
Okay.
coming today. The PIOs will be around after this if you have